of course. And so let's get started. I'm so happy to see you all at our next meetup. As usual, the format follows. Please write down your question in the chat, and during the speech or after it, we will ask them. I now give the floor to Jitendra, who is our speaker.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. I will just share my screen. Okay. Just let me know once you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
you can.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining the session. And the topic for today's session is Universal API Management and the Flex Gateway. So we will going to see what is Universal API Management and what is the Flex Gateway and how to set up the Flex Gateway basically in multiple modes basically. Okay. So let me start with my introduction. So my name is Jitendra Bafna, and like I'm having around like 15 years of experience in APIs and the integration. And I'm working on the MuleSoft from last 6-7 years, and I'm the MuleSoft ambassador also. And apart from MuleSoft, I know various other integration technology like Boomi, Camel, Spring Boot, XP Gateway, and that's all about me. Okay, so okay, so I'll just start with the agenda. So can you see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So agenda for today's session, we'll discuss about what is Universal API Management, what is a Flex Gateway, how to set up Flex Gateway as a Kubernetes Ingress Controller. So we will going to use the Minikube for setting up the Flex Gateway, then how to enable the monitoring, how to apply the policy, and also we will going to see like port-based routing versus path-based routing. So this is the agenda for today's session. So let me start with what is the Universal API Management. So basically, MuleSoft has last year come up with a concept called Universal API Management, where you can manage, govern, and secure the API, right? Secure the API under the single plane. Those API can be written in any technology. It can be written in MuleSoft. It can be non-MuleSoft API. So you can manage your API from the single pane of glass using Universal API Management. So what Universal API Management say? So you can manage, secure, govern, and engage your API from the single pane of glass. So you can see all your MuleSoft API as well as non-MuleSoft API on the single platform. You can enable the monitoring from the single platform. You can apply the security from the single platform. So everything you can see on the single platform basically. So that is what Universal API Management, right? So it allows the organization or enterprise to control, manage, and secure the API under single umbrella. It can adapt any kind of architecture, doesn't matter what kind of architecture your API is following, and you can govern all your APIs under the single platform. So basically, you can govern, manage, and secure your API from the single platform. It support any kind of architecture, it's not it can be microservices based architecture, it can be API led connectivity, or it can be monolithic architecture. So you can definitely apply this Universal API Management concept on any kind of API or API following any kind of architecture, or your API may be located anywhere. It can be on premise, it can be cloud hub, it can be in the hybrid environment, or it can be in your virtual machines or bare metal servers basically. So you can definitely enable the Universal API Management capability for any kind of API. So we will discuss one of the component that has been introduced as a part of Universal API Management, that is the Flex Gateway. So MuleSoft has launched a gateway. So MuleSoft already have other gateway, which is like Mule Gateway, and they have a service mesh. And now they have come up with something called Flex Gateway. So the main intention behind the Flex Gateway is to manage your non-MuleSoft API as well as the MuleSoft API from the single pane of glass, basically. So it's a ultra fast, and it basically using the Envoy, Envoy based CNCF project. So Envoy is the high performance, low latency, and very fast service, right? So there are some characteristics of the Flex Gateway. So you can secure and manage API located anywhere. It can be on premises, it can be cloud, it can be in the hybrid mode, virtual machine, bare metal. You can extend your anypoint platform capabilities to MuleSoft as well as non-MuleSoft API. So so there are various policies, there are various analytics, there are various kind of contracts, SLAs. So all those things you can easily apply to non-MuleSoft API also, right? You can achieve the consistent security and the governance across every API operating in any environment. You can easily integrate your API with a Flex Gateway using CI/CD workflows. And the other thing, you can use the Flex Gateway in local and the connected mode. So what is the difference between local and the connected mode? In local mode, like your Flex Gateway will be not registered on the Anypoint platform. So you have to manage your Flex Gateway using the YAML descriptor file. So you have to manage that YAML file. Like if you want to add expose new API, you have to manually go and update that YAML descriptor file. In case of connected mode, like your API your Flex Gateway will get registered in your Anypoint platform, and you can apply policies or you can apply any kind of monitoring from the Anypoint platform. Like you don't have to maintain or manage any kind of YAML descriptor file basically, right? So as I mentioned, it's a super fast, it's high performance, and it's a flexible. Why we call this as a flexible? It can adapt any kind of architecture. It's a technology agnostic, right? And like it can manage the API which is located anywhere in the universe basically, right? So that is why it's a flexible. So where you can do the installation of Flex Gateway, you can do on the Kubernetes Ingress Controller, Docker container, Linux service. So there are more installation has been added recently. We're going to see during the demonstration time. So there are various more installation has been added as a part of Flex Gateway new version. So it generally support three kind of authentication mechanism. So when you are setting up the Flex Gateway, you can use like Anypoint username, the password. You can use the auth token, or you can use the connected app also. So these are the three authentication mechanism supported by a Flex Gateway. Okay, let me discuss few things versus few differences between connected mode and the local mode. So in connected mode, your control plane will be on the Anypoint platform, and local mode, it's kind of local management operation. Like you have to go and manually update this YAML file. You have to manage the YAML file. You have to ensure the version of your YAML file. Everything you need to take care. So logging, so Anypoint platform provide advanced logging with the Titanium license. But in local mode, you can easily integrate with Splunk, ELAC, any third-party logging tool. API monitoring, you can use out-of-box API monitoring and out-of-box API manager metrics, basically, which is already available as a part of your Flex Gateway. And for local mode, you can definitely use any kind of third-party Grafana or Prometheus kind of monitoring tool. So here, Flex Gateway is completely managed by Anypoint platform. In local mode, Flex Gateway is managed using the local YAML descriptor file. So where API policy, you can simply apply the API policies, whatever API policy is available on the Anypoint platform. So you can go to Anypoint platform and simply apply or simply attach API policy to your API. Here, you need to go and manually update the YAML descriptor file for applying any kind of policy. Also, you should know the proper syntax and proper attributes and all those things for the local mode. So why we require a local mode? So generally what happens, so in your organization, there might be requirement no data or metadata should goes out of my network or my premises or my data center, right? In such cases, you have to use the local mode. In connected mode, definitely the metadata will be flow out of your network, or metadata will be flow out of your infrastructure, right? So in such case, you can go with the local mode. In case if you don't have any such a requirement, if you can go with the connected mode. But as I mentioned, local mode come up with many limitation as compared to connected mode, right? So how we can use the Flex Gateway basically? So you can use the single Flex Gateway for the multiple APIs. So you might be having the multiple APIs, like you have a MuleSoft API, you have a Spring Boot API, you have a Node.js API, you have a .NET API, right? So you can set up a single Flex Gateway on the top of all your API, and you can manage your API from the single Flex Gateway. Yeah, for high availability, you can ensure that multiple replicas of Flex Gateway is running basically. You have to ensure the multiple replicas of the Flex Gateway is running. If one of the replica is down, you have a second replica which will going to accept the request and process your request basically. Right. So this is the where you can use the single Flex Gateway and you can manage the multiple APIs. So that is possible, right? Apart from that, if you are following the microservices kind of architecture or micro gateway kind of architecture, so for each API, or maybe for each API, you can create a separate Flex Gateway basically. So for MuleSoft related API, you have a one Flex gateway. For Spring Boot API, you have a one Flex gateway. You Node.js API, you have a one Flex gateway. And for .NET API, you have a one Flex gateway. And each Flex gateway will have multiple replicas for performance, high availability, like fault tolerance kind of architecture. Right. So here also, like I am showing the Flex gateway in the connected mode. So here your Flex gateway get registered in the anypoint platform, and you can apply any kind of API policy, security, API metrics, and API alerts basically. Any question?
No. Please continue. Right now, no.
Okay. So like as I mentioned, like Flex gateway in the connected mode. So you can use all the out of box capability if you are using the Flex gateway in the connected mode. So you can use the runtime manager, you can use the API manager, you can use the endpoint monitoring, you can use the API analytics, you can make use of API policies. So there are n number of policies like JWT validation policies, like basic authentication policies. So whatever policies like you can apply to Mule gateway, right? So all these policies can be used for the Flex gateway, all this out of box policy, and even you can write the custom policies, right? So this all for connected mode, you can use all the out of box capability. And the good thing about the connected mode, like your API will get registered, your Flex gateway will get registered in anypoint platform. You can do all the operations from your anypoint platform graphical user interface. Also, in case if you want to do with the CI/CD, that it provide various APIs as well as CLI, anypoint CLI script that you can integrate with your CI/CD pipeline also. In local mode, as I mentioned, like nothing will get registered in the anypoint platform. So like you cannot use out of box capabilities basically. So you have to manage this YAML descriptor file, and like you have to take care of a lot of things like indentation of YAML descriptor file, attributes, like parameters, everything you have to take care. You should know those things, like if you are doing mistake in indentation, the file will be invalid basically, right? So you have to manage this YAML descriptor file. Also, you have to manage the versioning of this YAML descriptor file. Then you have to use the third-party monitoring tool or third-party logging tool, if you are using the Flex gateway in the local mode. Also, you can make use of the Flex gateway in the hybrid mode. So in case if you are using the 3-layer architecture, right? And you may have a requirement like I just want to expose my Experience API to the on the cloud, and rest of the API must be on premises. And in such cases, like you can use the Flex gateway Flex gateway as a local mode for the API which is running in the on premises, and the Flex gateway in the connected mode for the API which is running in the cloud basically. So it's just a hypothetical situation. So the architecture can vary, right? So it can vary. Like here I'm just showcasing like there are multiple ways of using the Flex gateway. You can use in the connected mode, local mode, and also in the hybrid mode, which is combination of your local mode and the connected mode, right? So again, as I mentioned, if you are using the connected mode, you can make use of all the out of box capability. But if you are using in the local mode, you have to make use of the third-party tools for logging and monitoring, and also you have to manage the YAML descriptor file. So here we will going to see two examples. I will just not show this. I want to show these two things: path-based routing and the port-based routing. So I will going to showcase this. So before that, let me start with some demonstration part, because demo will take some time, right? So what I have to show, I have like a Minikube is running on my machine. So if I say Minikube, it's a mini version of your Kubernetes. Let me check what is the status of Minikube. So everything is running. So you can see the Minikube is running. And here I have a 2 MuleSoft API which is running in the Docker container, order API and employee API, and I have one Node.js API, right? So I have a multiple API. Few are in MuleSoft and few are in Node.js, and I want to manage all this API basically, using Flex gateway. Right now, there is no authentication, no policies, nothing applied to those APIs basically. So let me run those API quickly. So this is my health API, right? Localhost. So this is the response. Then I have an API which is an employees API. Then I have like order APIs basically, right? So I have these 3 APIs, and I want to enable the API management capability on those things, right? So what I will do, I will log in into an anypoint platform. You can go to anypoint mulesoft.com. Then under mulesoft.com, you can go to runtime manager. Okay, any question? So I can take it if there's any question.
Equation is the following. As for Flex Gateway, how is it listened?
No, I haven't got the question. How?
As for licensing for Flex Gateway.
Licensing, right?
Yes.
It's a consumption based, like, so it's a consumption based licensing basically, right? So here, like, it's not core based, because see, I will tell you. So like there is a one advantage with the Flex Gateway also, like you don't have to buy a mule runtime basically, right? You can simply opt for only Flex Gateway, and the licensing for Flex Gateway is on the basis of consumptions basically.
And as for custom policies for Flex Gateway, are they available or not?
Yes, it's available. It's available. So whatever policy you can apply to Mule Gateway, right? So you can apply to the Flex Gateway. There are one or two policies which is out of, which cannot be applied. But apart from that, all policies can be applied to the Flex Gateway basically. And even whatever custom policies you are writing, right? Those can be applied to the Flex Gateway.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just log in. Okay, here you can go to Runtime Manager. So in MuleSoft, you log into any point platform, then move to Runtime Manager. Then here you can click on the Flex Gateway, which you will see new. So just Flex Gateway. And here you have a few options, like you can see this blue button. Click on this blue button and say Add Gateway. Now here it will show like where you want to set up the Flex Gateway. So right now I want to set up my Flex Gateway on the Kubernetes, right? You can do on OpenShift, and these are the few operating system. Like, if you select Linux, and these are the operating system, Linux operating system supported by the Flex Gateway, which is good. Like, earlier when they released the Flex Gateway, it is only supporting Ubuntu and Debian basically. And I don't think like it's supporting any other. Now they have introduced support for RHEL, CentOS, Amazon Linux 2. Now, but I want to set on the Kubernetes. The first step, we have to pull a Docker image. So here it gives all the commands. So we need to execute all this command one by one, right? So we will going to do that. So before that, like there are few prerequisites, like you should have a Kubernetes running on your machine, or like maybe Docker container running on your machine where you are setting of the Flex Gateway, depends, like, So here right now I'm setting a Flex Gateway on the Minikube. It's a mini version of Kubernetes. I've checked it, a Minikube status which is running, and here you can see the container for Minikube is already running, right? So first thing, you have to pull the Docker image. In my case, I will not let pull it because it's already there. In my case, I already pulled the image. So here in the images, you can see it. Refresh, it should be there, but that's fine. So in my case, it's already there. So here you can see MuleSoft Flex Gateway. Latest image is already there. So it will not going to pull anything. It's saying it's already up to date, right? In your case, it may take like 2-3 minutes to download the image for the Flex Gateway, basically. In my case, it's already there, okay? The next command. So I will copy this command, or you can do it from here. I will open Notepad. Right now, I don't want UID. So you can give any unique UID to identify your Flex Gateway. I will remove this. So here you can see the connected equals to true. It means we are setting the Flex Gateway in the connected mode. Now, as I mentioned, it supports 3 kinds of authentication: auth token, connected app, and anypoint username and password. When you are selecting the command from anypoint platform, by default, it will generate the token for you. So, right. So it's already there. I will bring everything into the one line, because on command prompt, like, it's slash doesn't work. This slash works on the Linux. I will give a gateway name. I will say EPAM GW demo, or I will give something like integration community demo. Okay. Then I will bring everything into a single line. Also, this PWD doesn't support on the Windows, right? This PWD means a current directory. This is the command supported in the Linux, right? Or if you are using like any command from other than Windows, basically. So what I will do, I have created a folder. I will give an absolute path. Yeah. Let me delete this file I don't require. So copy this command. Just maximize. I will just replace this $pwd. Just Control C. I will go to command prompt and I will run this command. If everything is fine, it will say starting the registration. Please be patient. It will take less than 30 seconds. Now what we are doing, we are registering the Flex Gateway. So what you will see, it will generate one file, registration.yaml. It contains the information like how to connect with the Anypoint platform. It contains various certificates. So when we will setting the Flex Gateway, right, it will do some kind of communication with your Anypoint platform, right? So like it will going to send monitoring data, it will going to send log data, it will going to send various events, all the metadata, right? So you can see all the URLs here, right? And here you can see the certificate. It's authentication between your Flex Gateway and your Anypoint platform. So here we have generated registration.yaml file. Now next thing, if you go to Flex Gateway, here you will see integration community demo. So this is the Flex Gateway registered. It's in connected mode. That's why you can see it here. Okay, let me go back. I will have to execute third command. Now I have to add the Flex Gateway to the Helm chart. So make sure Helm is a utility basically where you can set various chart attributes like replica count, auto scaling, minimum CPU size, those kind of things. So for that we have to register a Flex Gateway, or we have to add the Flex Gateway to the Helm chart. In my case, I already have a Helm utility. So here I already downloaded and I will run this command. Okay, it's already added. In your case, it will say it's added. Now I will just enable the Helm. Okay, it's successfully completed. Now the last command, which is very important. Now I'm creating a ingress load balancer. I am deploying. Now I will create replicas basically, and it will also create an ingress load balancer. Okay, I will bring everything into one line. And you have to run this command from the directory where registration file is generated. In my case, it's a user. Yeah. Okay, it will start installing the ingress. So once it will up, you will see, everything is good. Here you will see the replica will be generated. Any question till it's, yeah, now you can see the replica has been generated so quickly, So here you can see one replica is generated, right? So if you want to generate a multiple replica, what command should you execute? I will going to show those also, how we can enable the auto scaling and those kind of things. Any question? No. Okay. So let me execute other command. I will say minikube service list minus n gateway. Yeah. So here you can see like it created two load balancer, HTTP 80 and HTTP 443, right? So generally it created a two listener basically, like here you can see like HTTP for 80 port and for 443 port. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you don't have to worry. This command never get ended basically, right? So you just simply say Control C and you can come out of this, right? And just say CLS. Now I want to create a multiple replica. So what I will do? So I have already created an ingress controller, right? So I created already namespace called gateway, right? So now I have to just upgrade it. So I will just say create names. I will remove that, right? And I will just set one attribute set replica count. I am setting the multiple replicas of my Flex Gateway, which is 2. Or maybe I will say 3.
Jitendra, we already have a question which related to current topic. Can you elaborate more on the ingress command?
Yeah. So see what happens. So generally, when you are setting up the basically Flex Gateway, right? So first you register the set Flex Gateway, and then you create a ingress basically, right? Ingress is nothing. It's a kind of load balancer. It create the listener, like, so where like we are the Flex Gateway is listening for the request basically, right? So when we are setting up the ingress basically, right, or it generally create a 2 listener endpoint. One is on port 80, one is on port 443, right? If you want to add more and more port, I will going to show that also when I will show the difference between path based routing and the port based routing. So ingress is nothing like, it's a kind of URL. It provide kind of URL, or it's a kind of listener where the Flex Gateway can receive the request basically, and it's a responsibility of ingress to send the request or to load balance a request between the multiple replicas. Okay, now here I'm setting the replicas with the count 3, and I will remove this V8. So V8 generally it keep waiting, like, so I will remove this. Let's say enter. Okay, so now let's see what happens. It should have a more replicas. It will come, more replica will come. So now I've given the replica count equals to 3, right? So now it got disconnected. Now it will try to install more and more replicas. Basically, it will try to have 4 replicas, 3 replicas. Sorry. Now you can see, as I mentioned, replica count equals to 3. It will make it 3. Don't worry. Yeah. So it will make 3. So now there is a 3 replica. It is generally for a high availability and the high availability and the performance. Now, if I want to set the auto scaling, right, I will just remove the replica count. I will say auto scaling dot enabled equals to true. Okay. Now by default, when you say auto scaling enabled equals to true, it can have a minimum 2 replica. It can go up to maximum of 11 replica basically. It depends. Also, you can define on what memory size, on what CPU size you need to add replicas and all those things. You want to do enable the auto scaling. Those kind of attribute is also available. But by default, when you pass auto scaling dot enabled equals to true, the minimum replica setup will be 2, and maximum it can go up to 11, depending on, by default, a CPU uses is 50%, and memory uses 50%. If memory uses or CPU uses reach to 50%, it will keep on adding more and more replicas. So now it's here, you can see it just have 2 replicas, right? So as I mentioned, by default, auto scaling add 2 replicas basically, right? And it can go up to 11 replicas. So now we have set up the Flex Gateway, right? Now I want to expose some APIs basically, right? So let me do that. So here I will just say, and let me do one more thing. Minikube service minus n gateway URL. Minikube service ingress minus n gateway. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I will explain all these things. Now I want to start exposing the API. I can go to APIs, and first API I want to expose, that is the employee API. Add API, and I want to expose that API on the port 8081. But now my issue is that I have just created the listener for port 80 and 443. Now, if I want to create listener for 8081, so I want to edit a service ingress file. So for that, you need to execute this command kubectl minus n gateway edit svc ingress file, right? So I will do that. Let me execute this command. It will open the file, right? Here you can see like it just enabled the ATN 443. I will add the other port. And I can give some name, which is employee API. And I don't want to give a node port, it will automatically generate. I don't have to give a target port, it will be automatically generate. Only I will say 8081. Just save it, right? Now run this command, minikube service list minus n gateway. Here you can see the third listener has been created, right? So that's how you can create a more and more listener. Let me come back to my presentation. So here, like, we are talking about the port-based routing. Now I have a 3 API, employee API, which is running on Docker container 9000. I have a order API, which is running on 9002. I have a health API, which is running on 9003, right? So now how I will route the request. If the request coming on Flex Gateway port 8081, the request will go to the employee API. If the Flex Gateway request come on port 8082, it will go to order API. Then request coming on 8083, it will go to the health API. In future, if I'm getting fourth API, then I have to enable the 8084 and the request, whenever request coming on 8084, it will go to the fourth API, right? So here you have to have a separate port for each API deployed to the Flex Gateway. And you have to every time you have to modify that ingress service file. Right now we have added the port in one of the file, right? You have to modify that file every time. But there's a solution recently Microsoft come up with something called path-based approach, where you can have a single API, right? Which is you can have a Flex Gateway which is running on 8081. Depending on the path, we can route the request to the employee API, order API, or health API, basically, or maybe in future more API is coming, right? So you don't have to update the service file or Flex Gateway, right? You don't have to do that. You can avoid that. So you just have to add the path, and that path will take care of the routing. Basically, I'm going to showcase that. Okay. So let me first start with publishing the API. So here I'm selecting the Flex Gateway, and it will list down all the gateway which is in connected mode. I will say integration. Next. Here I create new API. I will just give int employee API. I will select the type as a HTTP API, right? So if I select REST API, I have to give all this YAML definition and everything. I will say HTTP API. Then I will say next. So now I am exposing my API to the Flex Gateway. So you have to provide the implementation URI. So for that, I require the IP address of my machine, which is 172.31.64.1. And I will say HTTP and port 9000, right? So this is the port. And here I will select what is the scheme. It's HTTP and port 8081. That's it. So here I'm saying my implementation exists here. Let me browse this. Here you can see the employee response, right? Let me go back and I will say next, save and deploy. Okay, let me check. It's active. So now instead of sending URL to this request to this URL, I will send the request to the gateway URL. So for that, I want to find the URL. So simply I will use minikube. So here, like I don't have any kind of NGINX or anything. So I have to find the tunnel URL basically, right? So I'm finding the tunnel URL, service ingress minus n gateway. Yeah, it will give a tunnel URL, and this is my tunnel URL. So I will copy this and port, okay, and I will say API/employees. Yeah, now I got the response for on this URL also. Now I'll apply the policy. Okay, I will simply apply basic authentication. apply, copy this URL. Maybe the URL will change. I will say API/employees. Yeah, now it is prompting me for the username and the password because I have set up the basic authentication, right? Now I want to expose other APIs also. So for that, first I have to edit this service file and I need to add more ports. So I want to expose like, orders API and I want to expose the health API, right? I will just edit this file, right? I will copy this. Okay. I will simply say order API. Okay. I will say 8082 port. I don't want the target port. Then I have health API. I don't want node port. 8083. Okay. So this file has been generated. Let me check again how many listener has been generated. Service ingress minus n gateway. So here you can see the 5 listener has been generated for 8083, 8082, 8081, 80 and 443, right? So now I will start exposing the other APIs also. So let me go back to my AnyPoint platform and I can go to my, I can do it from here also, or I can go to runtime manager. Okay. So I select the gateway. I will say next. I will create a new API. I will say int orders API. Select the target type HTTP API next. I have to provide the IP address. I will copy this. Okay. So I will say HTTP, but port 9002. My orders API is running on 9002, and I have to expose this orders API on port 8082. Next. Save and deploy. Right, I can apply the policy quickly. This is done. Now I will come to third API, which is running on port 9003, which is health API. I can do it from here also, Flex Gateway. Next, create new. I can say in health API, right? Select the type HTTP API. Next, we copy the IP address of my container, HTTP, then port 8083, not 88, sorry, 9003, and here it will be 8083. Next, save and deploy. Okay. Let me apply the policy quickly. Okay, now I have applied all, like, this particular, I enable the Flex Gateway for all the API. So next step, I want the URLs. I will just say, so this, the tunnel URL for 8082 will be this. I will just go here and I can simply say API/orders. Yeah, admin. So I will get an order response. Now let me take a third URL, last one. So see, in real case scenario, it will be one URL when you will set up NGINX load balancer. The NGINX load balancer will take care of all these routings and everything. Help, admin, admin. Right. So all the responses are proper with all the authentication and everything. Now we have seen the port-based routing where we have to update the ingress service file for adding the new port, right? But I want to avoid that. I want to run everything on 8081, right? So for that, we will use the path-based routing. I will copy this command again. I will remove all this entry from this file. I don't require this, I will just keep 8081. The rest I will remove it because I want to run everything on 8081. Copy. Let me check whether listener has been removed. Yes, now I can see only these are the listeners. That is good. So what I have to do, I will go to my API one by one. Right. I will go to employee API. Right. I will go to employee API. Here I will make use of the base path. So what I will say, employee API. Just give a base path for this particular API. I will keep 8081 only. I will say save and apply. Okay. Let me go to my second API, which is sorry. I will say orders API 8081. Now, if I don't give this, right? If I don't give this, it will give me error. It will give me error because the port 8081 is already allocated to employee API, right? If I give a base path, then it should not give me error.
So, and short question, do the Flex Gateway have possibilities to auth to authorization instead of basic?
Yeah, you can apply anything, JWT, whatever. It support everything.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
And I will change it to 8081, save and apply. Okay. So let me show that your query. So here you can see it support everything, like all the security policies. I will go to security, JWT, IP allow list, block list, OAuth token introspection, basic authentication, LDAP, basic authentication, So all the compliance policies like client ID enforcement, everything is supported. Okay, let me do the CLS. Now I will start running, API by one. This is my URL, copy and just paste it. Now I have to give a base path first, right? Then I will say API employee admin. So it will give me the employee response. Let me do order. Orders response, right? So like that, like you can do the health API. Health response, right? So here we are doing the path-based routing, right? Any question on this port-based routing and path-based routing? So the advantage with the path-based routing, like you don't have to open the port again and again for each and every listener, right? You don't have to do that, right? So with a port-based routing, you have to open the port again and again. If you are deploying new API, you have to go and update the service ingress file again and again, right? So you can avoid that.
Yeah. There is no question right now.
Yeah. Last thing, I will just going to show monitoring, like so here if you click on this employee API, and it provides some kind of key metrics. So there are some out of box key metrics. So total request over the time and password, total errors over the time, and average response time. So you can see it's already started generating the graph. If you want to see more deep monitoring, right, you can go to any point monitoring. And here you can select your API. So basically my API is int employee API. Pick the instance, just say view. So here you can see more and more detailed request, volume field request, total 400, 500 error. Like you can see more monitoring, more metrics here basically, right? And for more advanced login and you require the titanium license for that, right? So for advanced login and all those things, you require titanium license. Right? So yeah, so that's all about Flex Gateway, So I think we have done with all the demonstration and everything related to Flex Gateway. And thank you.
Thank you, Jitendra. Guys, do you have any question right now? Looks like all is clear, all clear. So I would say thank you for everything, for participation, for questions, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.